husband's here. He's like, I hope it works.
I'm so nervous. It's awful.
Oh, we accept this. It says we're live. Misty, it says we're live.
I'm wrong direction.
You look good.
No, I keep looking like the other way. So, okay,
No.
that was fine for you. We'll do it this way.
Yeah, you totally look good. I think it knows what you're doing with the phone, so it follows you.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yes. It says we're live. Well, let's see. Husband, are we live? I'm going to wait till he clicks on, and Zach is going on right now. But anyway, as we get settled, something that I love that this is our fourth time trying, because you know how they always say, so James says we're live. Thank you, babe, for commenting. It was really helpful. You know how people say, like, third time is the charm? It's not.
No, you gotta keep going.
That's a big lie. Yeah, we should always keep going. And this is like, I actually just did a redo of an interview. I had to interview somebody yesterday for my podcast. And she's this woman, her name is Jocelyn, and she owns this really cool, it's like a tour experience business in Western Massachusetts. And the first time I interviewed her, I was like, oh, you don't need to wear headphones, it's fine. But like usually with podcasting you do, because it's just a lot of audio, you know? But then like her episode came out so bad that like we had to re-record it. So then like, and what was so awful about it is that was her first experience with podcasting was with me. And so, like, then she was so pissed. So, like, the next time we recorded, she was like, my husband's in the next room. Like, she was so, like, good. Yeah, she was a great sport, though, about it. But I think it is. It's like when you work online, you really just have to contend with technology. You know?
I think a lot of people are going to be learning that.
I think a lot of people, anybody and I feel like, you know what else it is? Like, I feel like this is me paying the tax for not going live all the time. My business coach, Jessica, wants me to go live more.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I went to a Facebook Live meeting, or Facebook meeting, or using it for business. And yeah, I think live was definitely something that they said is going to be more popular and more better for anybody who's trying to do business or find clients on Facebook. So, but yeah, it is something that you're probably going to try to do every once in a while, just get in the habit of it.
I want to get in the habit. Because I'm all like, show up and rise and do that. And I want to eat more of my cereal that I keep making people eat. Like I want to, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yes. Practice what I preach. This is what I want to do. Before we roll into talking about the craziness that is the world right now, can you tell everybody tell everybody who you are and what you do? Because, of course, I know you quite well, but they might not.
Okay, sure. So, my name is Misty Lynch. I'm a certified financial planner and investment advisor. I work at Beck in Dedham, Massachusetts. And I worked with Liz as a client of hers to help me rebrand my website. And so, what I do typically is work with women, business owners, families, doing personal financial planning for them, and also investments as well. So it's luckily a business that can be done in a lot of different ways. I meet with clients in person, I meet with clients here in their homes, or now virtually. Is something that I like to be able to offer to people as well. So I am currently working with people's investments, and so it's definitely been a crazy week with everything that's going on. So happy to talk a little bit more about my thoughts on it with you and how it impacts people in business.
And what do you love most about what you're doing? Like, because I mean, if you get to work with, like, what do you love most about your clients?
So what I love most about my clients is I always feel like when people reach out to me, usually there's something going on that they, maybe need some advice on or stress, but I feel like there's always this sense of like, we can always do something. We can always make improvements. There's always room and I think people have a lot of weird feelings about money, a lot of stress, whether they have a lot of it, whether they have a little of it. And I can relate to that. I definitely, I love business owners. I love people who, are, either first generation wealth and things like that, where they're really maybe trying to navigate this without having the best resources available to them all the time. And so being able to be that resource, something that I trained myself, to do with reading and then with formal education, but really just kind of living as a child of small business owners and, seeing the ups and downs of the market, how we really felt that and how planning can really help to smooth that out when things get, when they get to be like they are now, where it's kind of confusing to kind of sort through what's going on and what applies to you and what you should do. So yeah, so I love that. I love the hope. I love the fact that we can kind of brainstorm and think of ways to feel a little bit more comfortable about money.
And I think that what you just said is so huge, that's something that people really desire, is to feel more comfortable about money. And I also think too, something that I really appreciate about, the work that you do is that you don't have to be a millionaire to like benefit from having planning. Like everybody needs a plan, especially entrepreneurs, because we like we said in our first conversation, we fund our own retirement,
Yeah, entrepreneurs, I think that there's a lot of things that, that it falls directly on you. As a business owner, as a boss, if you employ people, then you're going to be the person that they're looking to kind of help navigate things like that. You have to make big decisions. And yeah, I think that this time brings up a lot of how you can structure your business well in a way that can survive, a crisis, a weather event, sickness, if you want to take a break for yourself, things like that. So I think that that's something that it's really important for business owners to focus on, but everybody in general can benefit from a little bit of, personal planning for the things that they really want to do.
And I thank you also just for providing that context for people. And I think now in a time that the news really will scare you and everything feels very uncertain because, we don't know this stuff. At least I don't know this stuff. I work in business. I love sales. I love all of this stuff. But the money part, understanding Dow Jones or you know what I mean? Or all those, maybe I just am stuck on that. But all those different moving parts. Can you break down what is the state of the world right now? And do you think that it has an impact on small business?
Yeah, so I think that everything is somewhat connected, but I do think that it's important to understand when people hear the market is up or the market is down, that it's referring to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is really just an index of 30 large publicly traded companies in the U.S. So if you think about 30 compared to something like the S&P 500, which is 500 large cap companies in the United States, 30 is a really small percentage. And so one of the companies that's in there, for example, is Boeing and United Healthcare. And there's a lot of impact that this current environment is going to have on stocks like that. Apple also is in there too, which, with manufacturing, with things, there's a lot of things that are going to impact globally those stocks in the Dow. And so I think that that's important to see that as just being one gauge of, measurement as far as how the economy, things that are going on in the market. And then there's also the S&P 500, which if you own an index fund, it's probably based on the S&P 500, which is 500 large cap companies. So for somebody, it's I try to say owning one stock is owning one artist, where 30 stocks might be a playlist, and then the whole genre would be something like the S&P 500. So I think that's a way to look at things as far as, diversification and broadening that perspective. But everything is being impacted right now in the U.S. based on what's going on with coronavirus and how that's impacting, a lot of things in the world, like oil and, stock market, and even how people are going to feel at home when it comes to events, travel, and things like that are really starting to interrupt their daily lives.
Well, I have clients that work in travel, or they'll work because travel is such a umbrella. So I think that the first thing that we think of as consumers is airlines and hotels are suffering, but there's also companies like travel agencies are suffering, that are smaller businesses, as well as there's a company that just will take students that want to study abroad here in the States and place them in housing, and then they're suffering because nobody's going anywhere,
Yeah, no, so I think it's impacting, and it's even going to be starting to impact, universities, local businesses who were on the parade route in Boston or Chicago, all of these businesses, whether or not they are typically, recession proof, most people are always going out to get their hair done, always going out to eat and do certain things, where if there's something like not a shutdown, but if there's, if people are kind of putting themselves on lockdown for a while, that's going to impact just about everything. And so really, I think that's where we're seeing some shifts towards what can you do virtually? How do you bill your clients? What's your cancellation policy? All these things that are really going to be important for small business owners to think about are going to be kind of pushed to the forefront really quickly for them.
And do you think that, so like these things like coronavirus and the Dow Jones, although well explained, because didn't know what it was my whole life, didn't know until now. I know you could Google it, but I still probably wouldn't have understood it as well as you explained it. So I appreciate you explaining these things that we hear about all the time. But they feel so macro, whereas like I feel like one ant in the army of ant businesses. But I think that, like you said, like certain industries are going to feel it harder than others. I think that obviously, like, because I'm online, advantage, right? Because I don't have to see anybody, and I'm not relying on going to events for things other than meeting people, which I hear is a good thing to do.
Yeah,
I hear that's what they say.
Yeah, I think that there are going to be some businesses, especially, a lot of companies that have the capacity to work from home or maybe have tested that out before as part of a business continuity plan in general, or if they've been in a flood zone or if they've been in a fire region, like all of the things that have gone on that's interrupted business before has gotten a lot of people thinking about this, I think already. And so I think sometimes small businesses might be a little late to the party when it comes to those big disaster recovery plans because a larger company might be required to do so by their board or something like that. Right. So, I think, but a lot of people have, probably been thinking about this as, a business owner or a boss or an employee, like, what would we do if something were to happen or half the people couldn't come to work today? Like, what would that mean for business? And so I think, this is definitely going to be something that is either a wake-up call for some people, but it's never really too late to start thinking about it and planning. Even right now, if it's not something you've done, I think, that's what's great about entrepreneurs and business owners is they adapt. And I think that they can now maybe focus on what they can improve, look at the financials, look at their staff, and figure out how to get through this.
I have thought question comments around that. I have thought questions and comments. My first thought question is, do you think that something like this will affect how fast people maybe pay their bills? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, does it affect how fast people are willing to pay for things or willing to invest in things?
Yeah, I think it'll be different. You might see some people that are maybe going to put more of an investment into technology or maybe into their virtual presence. Maybe they're going to want to explore that as a way to stay front of mind for consumers who might be shopping differently or working differently. And then I think also that there might be, a little bit of when I was little, whenever there was a downturn in the economy, I feel like my father was paid last, so the invoices that go out there, they might be later, you might have to remind. So I think having maybe even a process in place if you, to guarantee you, that you get paid, so I think some people that might get paid, using a service might check and see like, okay, what is the policy here? Can I, is there a cancellation? Have I disclosed that? And things like that, that'll help them continue to operate. But I think there are going to be a lot of people who maybe are having trouble. And then I think there's going to be a slower pace where people who have a 9-to-5 job and can typically expect their paycheck to come on Thursday. There might be some uncertainty there too, but I think it'll be felt a little bit later than it will be for the people who are, billing and self-employed and having their clients cancel because they can't leave or they can't, they don't want to risk going out.
Right. Interesting. And so events will feel this. I mean, I'm thinking specifically, I have a friend who works for a company that makes like trade show, like signage. So like the booths, and everybody took a pay cut, a 10% pay cut already or something.
Yeah. And so that's a very quick impact, but I do think that that's something that business owners, those are big decisions. And that's why I think like if you have a strong connection with your employees and you're communicating all the time and they want to see things work out, then I think businesses will get through this. I do think that there's going to be, certainly ups and downs in the stock market. Like we said before, it's kind of like people are seeing really, scary red panic and want to sell with their money. and then all of a sudden they sleep on it and see opportunities, bargains, things like that, where they might say, well, I do think maybe in, Amazon, Google, like, they're, this might not be reflected with the business side, it just might be reflecting like the fear of the market, which is really normal. The stock market always responds to uncertainty. And so I think we're going to see these like wide shifts, but there are going to be businesses that are truly impacted, like airlines, travel, hotels. That industry is probably going to feel that first because people aren't traveling as much or leaving the house or canceling big events, graduations, weddings, things like that. We're going to see what happens there.
Weddings.
I know. Yeah. And
Whoa.
unfortunately, I saw that that's something that Italy, funerals and weddings were something that were canceled for the time being.
Oh my God.
And this isn't something that we've necessarily seen. And so I think the shift on Monday that was such a rapid decline and it caused the market to halt for, 15 minutes. This is unusual. Like that doesn't happen. I'm not going to say it's unusual, like, because that will happen when there's a lot of uncertainty, but it's not common. So we haven't seen too much of that. And so any comparisons to like 2008, these are more exceptions than normal day-to-day course of business in the market, but they can make people feel really stressed out and really nervous. And so that's completely natural. And, that's one of the things that I talk with my clients about too, is kind of looking at your money and where it is and when you need it.
Yes. And what are some things that business owners, because I feel like whenever I feel like the news or like, there will be like some event, right, that will call attention to these important things like the money in your business. And so I think for business owners, an event like this calls us to look at like our invoices, what's going on, what's our balance in our checking account. We look at the basic things. Yeah. At least I do at a moment like this. And then what are some steps that we can take to be prepared? I mean, I don't work in the travel industry, but like a lot of people do. Yeah. Some of my clients do. So what are some things that we can do to be prepared for like the future? Because
Yeah, so I think that everybody in any position should have some sort of an emergency fund for times like this. This is what I think would count, because people ask all the time, like, well, it's an emergency fund, like if I really want something or I really, want to do something nice and I feel like I deserve it, like, well, not necessarily. That's, that should be more when you have, the emergency fund squared away and some savings that's, and there's definitely room to have some fun with your money. But I do think an emergency fund is for times like this, temporary unemployment periods. I feel like small business owners, I definitely remember going a few months without my father getting a new client and I think that was, that was very realistic to happen. And then there would be some times where things were fantastic. Planning instead, when the times were really good, to put money away for those other times. It might not feel as fun, but it's very, very important for small business owners. Almost like where the 3 to 6 months might be okay for a couple who both have 9-to-5 jobs or something like that. But if you're on one income or you're self-employed, like you might want to stretch that out and plan for maybe having to spend 6 months to a year redesigning your whole business or supporting your family and not having to cut back on the things that you really like to do. It's a lot and it takes a lot of time to build an emergency fund. So, but it's certainly not just for the wealthy. It's for really everybody. Even if you have to start really slowly, I think I always heard we can't save money because of X. And if you're looking for a reason, your brain will find it. So there's always going to be a better use for the money. But I think if you say like, I need to save 10% of this, this big invoice that came in because I might need to fund my whole retirement, or because there could be a time where, maybe people can't get to me or I can't work because I've seen like, I think my hairdresser like hurt her arm or something, or one of the people that like, you can't work. So what are you going to do? And that's when you think about things like temporary business, temporary, disability insurance or business interruption policies, all of those things that seem like relatively maybe unnecessary if it's just you, but they do come into play, and I think that you're going to see more articles and more information about those types of things that can really help business owners get through tough times.
I think people do overlook that kind of insurance all the time, and I used to work in insurance, and I can tell you for sure people don't want to buy. People don't want to plan. It's like you don't go to the doctor for preventive medicine, although we should. Yeah. Like, go to physicals, but nobody goes because they think that they have a headache coming on.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And I mean, it's something that I do talk about when I do planning with people. And, sometimes they'll think like, oh, I don't know, I should look into that. And maybe they have options available to them in professional groups or through an employer, through their spouse's employer. And sometimes it's such short money that it's worth it, really, to kind of look at what your insurance policies cover, what kind of funding you have access to if you do your banking somewhere for your business, and maybe to see, like, if you needed to bridge a gap for a short term, what's out there for you. It's smart to know that even before you need it. And I think it's really important to focus on what Congress and what they're doing in Washington to address the needs that small business owners are already starting to feel in impacted cities, and see if that becomes something that's available, federally, or something that happens where you might need to tap into that resource. It's good to know about it. So I think people should really pay attention to that right now, because that could definitely help keep businesses operational, or at least keep payroll, let them offer paid sick time, let people go home and recover and not feel worried about, their employment.
That's a wicked good point. And I even want to, like, when you're talking about what the government's doing and stuff, you mean like loans, loans to get you through.
Yeah, they're not, I think that they're looking at things right now. I don't think that there's been anything that has been passed yet, last I checked, but I do think they're looking at ways to give, to pump money towards the small business, the businesses that are going to be, impacted heavily by what's going on here, to make sure that those industries don't crumble. Because obviously, I think that once things are more under control, I don't have much doubt that business will be back, in session for most people. But getting through this tough time could be really, really challenging. Even if they shut schools down, there's going to be, children who, that's where they get their meal during the day. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to be impacted in many different ways. And so I think that that's really getting attention from both sides of the aisle, to try to make sure that people are all right.
Yeah, no, this has been so amazing. So I know that you also, you help people privately too. So if people have money questions, they can come to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. I do, I help in a few ways. I've written blogs and tried to address things that are more on a broad scale. But yeah, definitely when I'm working and doing financial planning with individuals, it's about their particular situation. Like, it's very specific advice to them and their, what's going on, what their business looks like, what they have access to, their family, and all of those things are kind of brought into the picture. And we try to look at all of it. And then, I have to say, a lot of my clients right now aren't panicking, because that money that is their money that's invested for 30 years from now in retirement, they know to expect these types of ups and downs, and they're okay, because that money they need in the next 2 years is in a high yield savings or somewhere they can reach it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Tell everybody how they can find you and get in touch with you.
Okay, so yeah, you can find me at Misty Lynch CFP on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram, and also my website that you so graciously helped me redesign.
It's really nice.
Thank you.
I really like your website. No, thank you everybody for tuning in with us, and thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks, Liz.